Award-winning local author Crystal Maldonado is back with her sophomore book entitled No Filter and Other Lies. It tells the fictional story of a 17-year-old girl who lives a made-up life online which eventually comes crashing down around her. Maldonado joined me to talk about how the book explores teenage life in the age of social media and how her career as an author began.
I loved libraries growing up and going to bookstores. And I think it really began as just kind of a fun thing for my family to do with us kids, right? Like summer break, what do you do when you have three kids at home? It's like, take them to the library, take them to do something. And so we found ourselves at our local library pretty often, and we would check out books. And I immediately fell in love with these stories that I was reading. And I loved that I felt like I could go on these adventures without actually leaving my house or actually going anywhere. So I started daydreaming a lot and well, what would it be like if I started making up these stories and writing them? And so, I mean, I didn't know you could really become an author, but around third grade, I was like, I love writing and I don't know what this means, but I'm going to just write these fun little stories for me and my friends. And so it started that early for me. And then it wasn't probably until, God, probably only a couple years ago that I realized, oh, you can make this into a career or at least try to, if you're lucky, right? But yeah, it took until I was, well into my 20s before I thought, perhaps I can write a book and maybe someone will want to publish it.
And here we are talking because you have two published books. So
Yes.
let's talk about your sophomore book, No Filters and Other Lies. It was released earlier this year and tells the story of a 17-year-old girl who is living a made-up life online, and inevitably things get messy.
Yes.
Tell me, where did the inspiration come from to write this book?
So there were a couple of things that sort of inspired me for No Filter. So one is truly my love and obsession with social media. So like I think a lot of us, I spend a lot of time on my phone and on Instagram. And I've always had a really positive relationship with social media, but I worked in it as well as a brand manager. And I sometimes got to see the not so pretty sides of it. And so it got me thinking a lot about, well, what is it like being a teenager now and growing up with that pervasive feeling of always being online? And I think we don't give enough credit to young folks who are dealing with that. I grew up in a time where you actively could choose to go online, and it was a thing. You go on the computer and you log on and you could log off, and you don't have that choice anymore. And so it's, I think, really, really jarring and also really tough when you're in middle school and in high school and your whole life has been documented on social media. And then you have the pressures you normally would of, do I fit in? Do I have friends? Am I popular? Do people like me? But now it's amplified. Now it's not just that you didn't get invited to the party. I can see the photos of everyone else who did get invited to the party. So I wanted to explore that and that feeling, I think, of just kind of loneliness and the yearning for that validation through Kat, and how she's this girl who she's just trying to figure herself out, and she uses social media as something, she wants to use it for this professional reason to get validation for her art, but really she kind of wants the validation for herself. And it I think I hope I created someone who's kind of complicated in that sense. Yeah, of course she does a bad thing. You should never steal someone's identity, but we kind of see how she would feel so compelled to do that. So I wanted to kind of explore that through the lens of someone who does the catfishing, because I think that's so much more interesting than someone being catfished. I feel like that story is too sad,
Well, you said a couple of things that made me think of something. First, you mentioned that you grew up as a teen in a time where you can log on and log off of social media.
Yeah.
And you want to create these complicated characters. So as somebody who grew up before social media is what it is today.
Mhm.
How are you able to kind of put yourself in that place and authentically portray and really understand what teens face today?
So I really try to do my best to be respectful and like do my research. I feel like the best thing I can do is come at the young adult genre with great respect for teenagers and all of the realities that they have to face today. I just know, and I think back on my own time and how when I was growing up, everything feels so life or death. It just feels like, I remember getting into these fights with my friends and thinking it's the end of the world. Or if this person I have a crush on doesn't like me back, I'm never going to get over it.
Mhm.
And I think as we get older, there's this urge to sort of dismiss it because we know it's not the end of the world. And we know that teenagers will be able to get over it, but it doesn't feel like that when you're living it. So
Exactly.
I want to, like, when I'm writing these stories, I want to really pay tribute to those feelings and be respectful and appreciate that even if I as an adult know, you're going to figure out social media, it's not going to have such a hold on your life as you grow. I also know that, okay, but right now when you're 16, 17, God, when you're 12, it feels like it's everything.
Your first book, Fat Chance Charlie Vega, and this book, No Filters and Other Lies, both of them have a lot of representation in that book. And I know that that's a really important aspect of writing for you. So tell me, why is that important? And what impact would it have had on like a little Crystal's life to have seen that representation as a young reader?
Oh, that is such a good question. So little Crystal, as we said, was like such an avid reader, but I definitely went through this moment in my life as I was growing up where I'm like, I love these books and I love these characters, but do they actually love me back? Because I never saw anybody who looked anything like me in these books. None of them, it was rarely Latina characters. I felt like I never saw specifically Puerto Rican characters. I rarely ever saw fat characters. So there were just all these things and identities that I had that I thought, well, I must be abnormal because I'm never seeing these identities reflected back at me. And I think there's so much power in having representation be at the forefront of these stories. Once you start to see yourself, you feel a little less insecure about who you are, and you can sort of look at others and feel a little bit more empathetic for them too, because you're not out there fighting for your life.
Right. So you are an extremely busy woman. You have a full-time career on
I
top of
do.
your writing career, on top of being a mom and a wife. And you released two books in the span of 1 year. So
I did.
kudos to you.
Thank
Where do
you.
you find the drive to keep going?
Oh man, I ask myself the same thing some days because I'm like, can I just take a nap? For me, a lot of it is just the love of the actual writing, and getting to meet with readers and students is something that really, really motivates me. It's getting to talk, face to face or even virtually with young readers who are like, I am exactly like Charlie, or I have a friend group like Kat's friend group, or I want a dog like Cash from No Filter. And those things end up making me feel like, oh, this is why I'm doing this.
So, last question. What piece of advice would you have to offer other young adults out there that are trying to figure out what they want to do?
Oh man, I would say try everything and don't be afraid to fail. So I, growing up, was so nervous about looking silly or about someone judging me because I liked Beyonce too much or something. And those things, I think I let them hold me back and not really be my authentic self just because I thought, well, other people might judge me. And I think I could have come to writing and succeeded a lot sooner if I had not let those fears kind of get the best of me. So when you're young, try it all, and finding out what you don't like can be just as valuable as finding out what you do like.